Welcome to the deep dive. It's great to have you with us today. We have this tendency in the modern world to treat human happiness like an engineering problem.
Oh, for sure.
It's presented as this very clean, linear equation that we're taught from a young age. Like, you get the right degree, which, leads to the right job, which buys the right house with the right climate control.
Right, the perfect setup.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the output of all that perfectly calibrated physical comfort is supposed to be joy.
Yeah.
It is supposed to be peace.
Yeah, it's an incredibly seductive input-output model. I mean, it is highly quantifiable. And frankly, it's very comforting to believe that if you just control all the external variables in your life, you can absolutely guarantee the internal result.
But then you look around at the reality of the world we live in, and suddenly that equation just completely falls apart.
Yeah, it really does.
We are looking at a landscape where the people with the absolute most optimized, comfortable, secure lives are very often the ones struggling the most with doubt, isolation, and, well, anxiety. The math just doesn't math.
It is a profound paradox, and it forces us to question the entire foundation of how we've built modern society, because the fundamental promise of progress seems to be breaking down at the psychological level.
Right. So, to help us navigate that paradox today, you and I are taking a deep dive into the insights of someone who has thought about this as deeply as anyone alive.
Yes, we have a stack of excerpts from the book Ancient Wisdom, Modern World Ethics for the New Millennium.
And the author is the Dalai Lama. But before we even jump into his ideas, it is so important to understand where this perspective is coming from.
Absolutely. This isn't just a religious leader speaking from some comfortable ivory tower.
No, not at all. This is a Nobel Peace Prize winner who literally lost his country at the age of 16.
Yeah, by 24, he was a refugee.
Right. He has faced unimaginable loss and political turmoil, yet he is known globally for this unshakable inner peace.
I mean, he is speaking from a place of intense lived adversity. He isn't offering untested abstract theories. He is offering like a psychological survival guide that was forged in reality.
And that brings us to the mission of our deep dive today. We are going to extract the Dalai Lama's blueprint for a modern moral compass and for genuine human happiness.
And the real kicker here, it is a blueprint that surprisingly doesn't require you to believe in religion at all.
Which is wild coming from him.
Yeah.
So we're going to explore why the highest levels of anxiety often exist alongside the highest levels of physical wealth. And we'll uncover a very specific Tibetan concept that might just be the antidote we are all looking for. Okay, let's unpack this.
So the core problem the Dalai Lama identifies in his text is the undeniable failure of material wealth to deliver inner peace.
Right.
He notes that people constantly travel to see him in exile in Dharamsala, India. They arrive from all over the world, often seeking some kind of magic healing or a mystical blessing to cure their suffering.
Which he immediately shuts down. I love how pragmatic he is about this. He insists to them, I am just an ordinary human being. I don't have magic powers.
Yeah, he really wants to ground the conversation in our shared everyday reality. He points out a universal truth. Every single human action, at its core, is an attempt to answer one question: how am I to be happy?
Right, like every decision.
Exactly. Every decision you make, from what you eat for breakfast to who you marry, is a strategy to achieve that goal. But he observes this striking paradox in the people who visit him.
A wealth paradox.
Yes. Individuals living in wealthy, highly developed nations are frequently more tormented by anxiety, depression, and a deep sense of uncertainty than those living in much poorer, less developed nations.
He shares this one anecdote in the text that is just, well, it's incredibly striking. He talks about visiting a very wealthy Western family early on in his travel.
Oh, right, the house with the servants.
Yeah, they have this beautiful, sprawling home, servants catering to their every need. Outwardly, it is the absolute pinnacle of success. But during the visit, he accidentally sees into a bathroom cupboard that was left slightly open, and it is just stuffed full of sleeping pills and tranquilizers.
What's fascinating here is the diagnosis he makes from that moment. I mean, the Dalai Lama isn't just criticizing wealth or saying it's bad to have a nice house.
No, he's not anti-wealth.
Right. He is pointing out a fundamental mismatch between external appearances and inner reality. We expect physical comfort to cure psychological suffering.
Which doesn't work.
No, philosophically speaking, that is a category error. You cannot solve a crisis of the mind with a softer mattress.
It is like we have spent the last 100 years constantly upgrading a smartphone's hardware.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Right. We've got better screens, faster processors, sleeker designs, which is like having better houses, better cars, better food.
Mm.
But the operating system, like our emotional and psychological baseline, is still completely riddled with bugs.
Yeah.
No amount of new hardware is going to fix a software crash. You are basically just upgrading the camera to take higher resolution pictures of a life you aren't actually enjoying.
That captures the dynamic perfectly. When you have all the hardware you could ever want, but you still feel empty, the psychological despair is actually worse.
Wait, why is it worse?
Well, think about it. If you are poor and unhappy, you can tell yourself, I'll be happy when I get money. You have hope.
Ah, I see.
But when you have the money, the house, and the security, and you are still miserable, that hope vanishes. You have nothing left to blame your unhappiness on but yourself.
Wow, yeah, that is heavy. So if material wealth isn't the cure for unhappiness, why have we become so singularly obsessed with it? What do we actually trade away to get all this comfort? Because the text makes it clear we lost something vital in the pursuit.
We traded away our reliance on each other.
Community.
Exactly. The Dalai Lama points out a massive societal shift from community reliance to machine reliance. He uses the example of a harvest.
Right.
It used to be that families and neighbors all had to come together to harvest a field. You physically needed each other to survive. Now, you just pick up a phone and hire a contractor with a massive machine.
So the ultimate ambition of modern life has essentially become total independence. We want our own house, our own car, our own computer. We want to design a life where we need absolutely no one.
And the psychological cost of that hyper-independence is devastating. When you design a life where you don't need your neighbor for anything, you slowly develop the subconscious belief that your neighbor's happiness doesn't matter to your happiness. You become an island.
Which leads to this deep, pervasive alienation.
Mm.
He describes modern industrial society as this huge, self-propelled machine where people feel like tiny, insignificant cogs.
Yeah, they have no control. They just move when the machine moves.
He specifically notes the tragedy of how many elderly people in developed nations end up with absolutely no one to talk to but their pets.
It's heartbreaking. To contrast this, he talks about the Spiti region, which is a rural area in northern India that is culturally similar to traditional Tibet.
Right, the unlocked doors thing.
Exactly. In these communities, people still leave their doors unlocked so that hungry travelers can just walk in and eat a meal while waiting for the family to return. There is a default setting of trust and mutual reliance.
Oh, wait, let's look at the psychology of that for a second. Because why does leaving your door unlocked actually lower the host's anxiety? To a modern mind, having an unlocked door sounds terrifying. It sounds like an invitation for chaos.
It really does sound crazy to us, but it comes down to cognitive load and how our nervous systems are wired. Humans evolved to live in tribes.
Right.
When you live in a hyper-individualistic society with a locked door, you are subconsciously treating your home as a fortress. You are solely responsible for defending yourself against the world.
Oh, wow. So you're always on guard.
Exactly. That creates a constant low-level fight-or-flight response. It's all on you. In the Spiti region, the unlocked door represents an unspoken social contract. I take care of you today, you take care of me tomorrow.
So you're not carrying it all alone.
Right. When you trust your community, you aren't carrying the burden of survival entirely on your own shoulders. The nervous system can actually relax.
That is fascinating. But, he doesn't romanticize poverty, which is a trap a lot of philosophers fall into.
No, he avoids that completely.
He explicitly states that if you offered the nomads of Tibet modern thermal clothing, smokeless fuel, and a portable TV for their tents, they would absolutely love it. And he wouldn't want to deny them those things.
Right. He isn't saying progress is bad. He is saying we've placed a blind faith in science and progress to solve human problems they simply aren't equipped to solve.
Yeah, science is spectacular at predicting physical consequences. As he says, we landed human beings on the moon.
But science has profound limits. It still cannot fully explain the fundamental nature of human consciousness. And more to the point of this text, science offers absolutely no guidance on morality.
I hear that, but I have to push back a little bit here.
Okay, let's hear it.
The reason you and I and everyone listening worship science and this hyper-independent lifestyle is that it works. It brings immediate, visible results. If I have an infection, antibiotics cure it in days. Prayer doesn't do that.
True.
Independence means I can protect my family. Isn't that exactly what we've all been taught is the definition of success?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, your pushback highlights exactly what the Dalai Lama is warning us about. We have completely replaced a religious or spiritual framework with a scientific material one.
Right.
And because the scientific framework is so incredibly successful at mastering the physical world, like curing your infection, we mistakenly assume it can master the moral world.
But it can't.
It can't. He gives the example of a deep moral dilemma. If you were trying to figure out the right thing to do, a nuclear physicist is going to be of no more help to you than a lawyer.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They can tell you the trajectory of a particle or the legal risk of an action, but they cannot tell you what is right.
It tells you the what's and the how, but not the why or the ought.
Exactly. And when you strip away a shared moral framework, you are left with moral relativism. If science can't prove a moral truth in a laboratory, people start to believe morality is just a personal preference.
Which is dangerous.
Very. That questions reality itself and paves the way for societal chaos because there is no longer a shared baseline for human behavior.
So if science can't guide our morality, and the Dalai Lama openly acknowledges that billions of people on this planet do not and will not practice any religion, where does that leave us? Where do we find our moral compass? Here's where it gets really interesting.
His stance here is quite controversial for a major religious leader.
Yeah, I was surprised by this.
He states outright that he believes it doesn't actually matter much if someone is a religious believer.
Yeah.
What is far, far more important is simply being a good human being.
And to make that work, he draws a very sharp, very important distinction between religion and spirituality.
Yes.
He defines religion as being concerned with faith, salvation, nirvana, dogma, and rituals. It's the architecture of belief.
Spirituality, on the other hand, is concerned with the innate qualities of the human spirit, things like love, compassion, patience, forgiveness, and contentment. These are the qualities that bring actual happiness to yourself and to others.
Which brings us to a foundational Tibetan concept he introduces to fill the void left by dogma. It's called Shenpen Ki Sem, which translates roughly to the thought to be of help to others.
Shenpen Kisem. It sounds beautiful, but how does shifting my focus to other people actually help me with my own modern anxiety?
Think about what anxiety usually is. It is an obsessive hyper-focus on the self. What if I fail? What do they think of me? Am I going to be okay?
Right, it's a closed loop.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The concept of Shenpen Pi Sound breaks that loop. He calls it a spiritual revolution. But it's not otherworldly or magical. It is a radical, practical reorientation.
So you look outward.
By turning your focus outward toward the wider community, you stop endlessly auditing your own happiness. Paradoxically, by worrying less about yourself and looking to be of help to others, your own internal anxiety diminishes. I see the psychology behind that. But if we are stripping away religion, if we remove the threat of hell or the promise of heaven or the concept of karma, what actually stops people from acting selfishly?
That is the big question, right?
Yeah. If there's no cosmic judge tallying up my points, why shouldn't I just take what I want and prioritize my own comfort above everyone else's?
This raises an important question, and it's the exact question the text attempts to answer. The Dalai Lama argues that the foundational baseline for ethics doesn't need to be divine law.
Okay.
It can be a simple, universally observable fact. Every single sentient being desires happiness and wishes to avoid suffering. You want to be happy. I want to be happy.
The person cutting me off in traffic wants to be happy.
Exactly. Therefore, an ethical act is simply one that recognizes and respects another's equal right to that happiness. You don't need a religious text to tell you that causing someone else to suffer is a violation of a shared reality.
That grounds morality in fundamental empathy rather than blind obedience. I like that. But life isn't always that clear-cut.
No, it rarely is.
Right. If our goal is to respect everyone's right to happiness, how do we judge complex, messy, everyday actions where the outcomes aren't immediately clear? Because sometimes doing the right thing causes someone short-term suffering.
The text explicitly warns against judging an action solely by its consequence, because consequences are often completely out of our control.
Right. You could try to help and totally mess it up.
You might try to help someone make a mistake and accidentally make things worse. He also says we can't judge an action just by its appearance.
He gives some really illuminating examples of this, like some actions look harsh on the outside but are actually deeply positive, like a parent firmly disciplining a child to keep them from running into traffic.
Right, looks mean, but it's loving.
Conversely, some actions look gentle and sweet but are inherently violent, like fake kindness used to manipulate or deceive someone, which ultimately destroys their trust.
Which is incredibly damaging.
And then you have actions that might have a quote-unquote good goal, but are inherently unethical, like a soldier executing unarmed civilians for the greater good of a war effort.
Right, so if consequence and appearance aren't reliable metrics for morality, he introduces what I would call the ultimate litmus test. It's the Tibetan concept of kunlong.
Let's really dig into Kunlong because this is the mechanism that makes the whole philosophy work.
It translates roughly to motivation or disposition, but those English words are just too flat. They don't capture the depth.
So what does it actually mean?
In Tibetan, kun means thoroughly or from the depths, and long means to awaken or arise. So kun long is what thoroughly awakens from your depths to drive your action. It is an individual's overall state of heart and mind.
State of heart and mind.
Yes, and it's crucial to understand that the Tibetan word for mind, lo, doesn't separate cognitive thought from emotion. They are intertwined. The Western mind tries to logic its way out of anger, but Tibetans treat the thought and the feeling as a single package.
To make this relatable, the Dalai Lama gives the example of someone bumping into you on the street.
Yeah, this is a great example.
Imagine you are walking down the sidewalk, someone bumps hard into your shoulder, and they immediately start yelling at you for being in their way. How do you react?
Well, normally. Not well.
Right. But the text argues that your reaction depends entirely on your kunlong in that exact fraction of a second.
I see.
If your baseline state of heart and mind is habitually compassionate and calm, you probably just shrug it off. You might even feel bad that they're clearly having a terrible day.
Right.
But if your mind is already in turmoil, if you are stressed, angry, and self-obsessed, you are going to react harshly, escalate the situation, and cause more suffering.
Exactly.
It makes me think of Kunlong as the engine of a car. You can have this beautiful, shiny exterior, which is like using polite words and having a smile on your face. And you can have a planned destination, which is the consequence you are aiming for. But if the engine is running on dirty, contaminated oil, if your underlying motivation is selfishness or anger or greed, eventually that car is going to break down and is probably going to cause a crash that hurts other people.
That is a highly accurate analogy.
Mhm.
If the engine is fueled by positive kunlong, the journey is safe, regardless of the bumps in the road.
Right.
The Dalai Lama emphasizes the immense practicality of this. Look at the suffering in the world. We cannot control natural disasters like earthquakes or floods. But human-made disasters, war, systemic poverty, violent crime, corporate fraud, every single one of these stems from a corrupted kunlong.
Wow.
They are the result of individuals operating with an underlying disposition of selfishness or malice.
I love the philosophy of this, but how do you actually do it? This is where I have to ask on behalf of real life.
Fair enough.
It sounds great for a monk on a mountain, but if my alarm didn't go off, I am late for work, and the kids are screaming, I can't just flip a switch and say, okay, setting my disposition to compassion now. How do we actually cultivate kunlong when modern life is actively trying to stress us out?
Well, it isn't a light switch. It is a muscle. You build it through continuous daily maintenance.
Maintenance.
Right. The Dalai Lama shares his personal strategy, and it involves catching the spark before it becomes a flame. When you feel the irritation rising, when the kids are screaming, mindfulness is the tool that lets you observe that stress rather than instantly acting on it.
So you just pause.
You pause. You remind yourself of that baseline empathy. My kids are overwhelmed right now. They want to be happy just like I do.
Right.
You don't suppress the frustration. You just refuse to let it be the fuel for your next action. It takes practice. He wakes up every morning and consciously sets his intention for the day, preparing his kun long before the stress even hits.
So what does this all mean? Bringing this directly back to you as you go about your day-to-day. We started this deep dive looking at the paradox of the modern world.
Right.
We have engineered the most physically comfortable existence in human history, but we are still stuffing our bathroom cabinets with tranquilizers because we are trying to fix a software problem with hardware upgrades.
Exactly.
True happiness isn't found in a perfectly climate-controlled, hyper-independent bubble where you lock the door and don't need anyone else.
And finding that happiness doesn't require you to adopt a strict religious dogma either.
It's found in stripping all of that away to find a baseline, universal human spirituality. It's recognizing that the person next to you in line or the person cutting you off in traffic wants to be happy just as much as you do.
Yes.
It's about looking under your own hood and doing the daily maintenance to cultivate a healthy kunlong.
I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, building on everything we've discussed today. The Dalai Lama shows us that kunlong, this deeply human, intertwined state of heart and mind is the ultimate ethical gold standard for navigating life.
Absolutely.
But we are rapidly approaching a future where massive automated systems, algorithms, and artificial intelligence are making decisions that directly affect our happiness and our suffering.
Oh, wow. That's true.
From approving medical care to targeting weapons, these machines are taking actions.
After.
But there is no human Kunlong driving them. There is no beating heart or empathetic mind behind the wheel.
That is slightly terrifying.
The great ethical challenge of our time might be this: how do we possibly code a state of heart and mind into the machines we are building to run our world?
That is a heavy but incredibly necessary question to think about as we build the future. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. As you head out into the world today, maybe take a second before your next interaction, check your engine oil, and ask yourself, what is driving me right now? Have a great one.